Hey, Caleb.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Pretty good. You?
Good, good. You're on with Ron Daly, who's president of Nuclear Fuel Services and also oversees the Jonesborough facility as well. Hey,
Awesome.
Caleb, how are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Doing well, doing well. So we thought it might be good just as a quick backgrounder, kind of looking at all the different projects that BWXT has going in Tennessee, because there seems to be sort of a lot of confusion around what is actually going to happen in Jonesborough. And so maybe if we just give you kind of the big picture of everything that we do in Tennessee, kind of leading to then exactly why we're doing this rezoning of our property in Jonesborough, that might be helpful to you.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, I'll turn it over to Ron. All right, you've got the presentation available, John? Yeah, there it is. Are you able to see that, Caleb?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So what we wanted to do is back up a little bit to give an overview. We'll start with NFS only because some of the press releases associated with NFS seem to be at the genesis of some of the confusion, whereas folks are associating NFS activities with Jonesborough activities, and that's part of the clarification we'd like to get across. So we'll start here, walk through some activities in Oak Ridge, still in Tennessee, further away, and then we'll draw it back to Jonesborough, what activities in Jonesborough, what the rezoning's about, and then clarify some things that strictly do not apply to Jonesborough, but we have seen discussed in social media as if they do. So let's go to the next slide, John. So we'll start here and try to cover this format for both Irwin and Jonesborough. What is going on now? What is coming soon? And then what does the future hold? Right now, NFS is doing its normal operation, which includes Navy fuel. Navy fuel we've been doing since the late 1960s, really since the inception of the nuclear Navy program. We also do highly enriched uranium downblending for TVA. So that's where we have the contract there. We've been doing that since the early 2000s. And that's just sort of normal state of operations for NFS. We have had some more recent press releases associated with a new uranium metal process. That is slated for construction completion in December of this year. We'll go through about a 6-month period of verifying that it was installed as intended. We'll train operators, ensure procedures are all accurate, and then we expect to start processing uranium metal, or U metal as we call it, about mid-2026. So that's coming up pretty soon in reality. What the future holds is we had a press release associated with a highly enriched uranium enrichment pilot facility that will come to Irwin. It is anticipated to be in operation in the 2030s. We'll talk a little bit more about it related to Oak Ridge, but what we have starting now is about a 3 to 4 year period where we will be doing design work and licensing work. Once the licensing is submitted and approved, then we can start construction for this part of the facility expansion. We expect that's probably 2028 to 2029 for construction. Then it'll be in operation in the 2030s. So that's NFS. Here in the September-October timeframe, we had a press release for the enrichment work, and then we had a more recent press release for the fuel contract. That more recent fuel contract press release is just an extension of our current operations. It's it's nothing new, and it certainly doesn't apply to Jonesborough. So that's part of what we wanted to clarify. Let's go to the next slide, John. On into Oak Ridge. So the press release related to enrichment covers activities slated for Irwin in the future, but the current activities are actually in Oak Ridge. So we have started construction on conceptual facility you see here. It's a 63,000 square foot manufacturing development facility, and what it's for is to work on what is the manufacturing process to produce centrifuges for domestic uranium enrichment. And so this is tied to a program called DUCE. DUCE stands for Domestic Uranium Enrichment Centrifuge Experiment, and it's a NNSA program. Oak Ridge National Laboratories is the design authority for that particular centrifuge, and we're working in partnership with them. And so this facility is where we would prove out the actual manufacturing process. We are slated to finish construction on this facility by year's end, 2025. So let's go to the next slide and we'll show you a picture where we are with it. So that's it. I'll call it today. It's really October 2nd. So today they're actually working on pouring the roads, the curbs for parking, things of that nature, while they also work on the inside. So the roof is complete. They're working on inside wiring, inside plumbing, things of that nature right now. But like I said, it's expected to be complete by year's end, and then we'll have a ribbon cutting ceremony January 26th for it. So that's all in Oak Ridge. We bought 100 acres there for this and its follow-on facility, which will be a 200,000 square foot manufacturing facility for those centrifuges. All right, so Jonesborough. And last night, the rezoning was really about Jonesborough only, but those two things kind of feed into some of the confusion we saw last night and we've seen in social media. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Jonesborough has been doing work for Department of Defense for many, many years. Going back to the late 60s, early 70s, they have worked in special alloy components, one of the primary ones being depleted uranium. And they have had the capability to process and purify depleted uranium for many years. The current work starts with what is listed as soon, that we're working on constructing an expanded capability to purify depleted uranium. That expanded capability actually fits into the current M2 zone area. So the rezoning is not necessary for that work. It's expected to complete construction next year and be in operation late 2026 and into 2027. Along with that is a future expansion for the same process that will add some buildings. So the conceptual picture you see there, it shows new facilities. It shows the ones to the lower arrow. Those are adjacent and in existing buildings. And then the upper arrow shows brand new purpose-built buildings. So one thing I'll point out, because we saw in the social media comments as well, many times it's quoted that some of this land that is being requested to rezone is in a flood area. We added the Little Limestone Creek flood zone. That is the 500-year flood zone in its entirety. So if you've ever seen Little Limestone Creek, it is a really, really small creek. And so even the 500-year floodplain is no larger than what's depicted there. So we just wanted to have a conceptual idea of when they talk about floodplain, that's what they're talking about there. So only those new facilities are really what's driving the rezoning, not the current operations. All of this land is currently owned by BWXT. It's been owned by this facility for many, many years, so there is no property acquisition that's involved here. And again, it is capability that they've had for many years. So we'll go to the next slide and kind of hit that point home. So first thing, the rezoning, it is on existing property. It is for similar manufacturing use. There's no new property involved. The construction of these new facilities is aimed at processes that are already in their existing portfolio of capabilities. So I added this next part just to be as absolutely clear as I can be. In Jonesborough, there is no enrichment. There is no highly enriched uranium. There is no nuclear fuel fabrication or manufacturing on site. So where we're seeing that, we just want to be as clear as we can. Those things are not aimed at Jonesborough, have not been aimed at Jonesborough, have no intention of being aimed at Jonesborough. This is merely an expansion of current capability. To some of the concerns within the community, as any manufacturing facility inside the state of Tennessee, there'd be heavy oversight from TDEC, Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation. This is no different. They do have state licenses for radiological reasons. They've got them for wastewater permitting reasons, air permit reasons. And so that oversight still comes into play. We have a very structured design process. That design gets reviewed by the state. And all of that is in play here for what we're talking about. You can see the buildings are adjacent to the current buildings. And so there is no intent to press manufacturing out to the outskirts of the acreage that's owned by the site. So they own 128 acres. We're not talking about doing away with the buffer that exists today. These buildings obviously expand the footprint, but they don't really press or stress that boundary. So from a community standpoint of worried about property values, there should be no impact any different than it is today. There should be no real increase in noise. There will be an increase in traffic as we have volumes of trucks for construction purposes coming in. We'll work with the local folks, local government, state folks as necessary to limit any impact there. But overall, it's an expansion that fits nicely inside the current acreage that they own. So those are just some of the things we wanted to help clarify and highlight. See if you had any questions coming out of that.
Yeah, so I'm ignorant of these things. So you say here no enrichment, no highly enriched uranium, no nuclear fuel on site. On the previous page, you mentioned something about things you were doing with uranium. What's the difference there?
So depleted uranium, if you think about enriching uranium, it is focused on increasing the amount of U-235 isotope in the uranium you have available to you. U-235 is critical to creation of energy. And so when you enrich uranium, you end up with two different streams. One stream becomes more highly concentrated in the U-235 isotope. And as you make that one more concentrated with U-235, you make the other stream weaker in U-235. That weaker stream is called depleted uranium because it has less U-235 than natural uranium. And so depleted uranium has no ability to have a nuclear criticality type of accident. That's the best way to think about it. In other words, you'll not see it at a commercial power plant being used for energy. It doesn't work that way. And so it is more of a depleted uranium is more of a metallurgical player, like tungsten, like stainless steel, like some strong alloys. So it is merely a metal that has really good properties for certain purposes. Some of those purposes are for defense purposes. And so that's what BWXT in Jonesborough does, is make munitions for the Department of Defense using that material, analogous to using a tungsten or a stainless steel or some other metal.
Okay. One of the concerns I'd heard about was the idea of having, contamination in this creek. Is that something folks should worry about? Because there's a lot of farms in that area.
Yeah, so there's a couple different ways to talk about that. I'll start with the expanded facility. The design for the expanded facility is aimed at having no impact on liquid discharge. So there would be no notional increase in liquid discharge from this facility. So they shouldn't be worried from that standpoint. In addition to that, in concert with our permits from TDEC, we have to sample that water, whether it be groundwater or whether it be the creek itself. And then a third-party lab does analysis for that, and then TDEC does oversampling to ensure that the results that we're getting, the samples are good and the results we get are accurate. And so they should have no real additional concern, knowing that oversight's in place and that check step is in place to ensure that it stays clean and safe.
Okay. And then I guess the other question that comes to mind is the actual rezoning paper that was in the agenda doesn't have any information about what this rezoning was for. Why is that? Why not share this information publicly ahead of time?
There's no reason. So we actually put out a press release that says precisely what our intent is to expand high purity depleted uranium processing capabilities in Jonesborough. So that was in an article. That press release speaks to the fact that the design is aimed at not increasing liquid discharge, as an example. Further, we had been planning and still are planning a community engagement night to help educate the community on what's coming, what we're doing, what to be aware of. We had that planned for early 26, so there's no intent not to share. It's actually quite the opposite. This sort of firestorm that came out on social media just beat us to the punch on getting that information out. So, John, if you want to talk any more about the details on that community engagement night, feel free.
Yeah, thanks, Ron. Yeah, so we're planning on doing that after the first of the year, and really what that's going to be is kind of what we call a poster session. So we'll give an overview of kind of what the project is and what's involved, and then we will have BWXT personnel there with different stations talking about different aspects of the project. So safety, environment, jobs, economic development, those types of things, and kind of what the process is for the ADU. And that will be an opportunity for the public to come out. We'll do it in the evening to just ask questions directly of BWXT personnel and get their questions answered.
Yeah. But that will be after the zoning's been decided, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I imagine that some folks will say, well, it doesn't help to tell us after we can't do anything about it.
Right, yeah, so there was no intent there. Like I said, the amount of energy around this was a bit surprising because the heart of this facility is already zoned M2, so it's only an expansion of that M2 zone that we're talking about. I think there's a little bit more concern just based on the entirety of the 128 acres being rezoned as if we're doing manufacturing on the entirety of the 128 acres. It's not the intent. Like I said, we intend to continue to have a similar type buffer with the community that we have now. Yes, the footprint of the facility is growing, but it's not to 128 acres. So part of the opportunity will be to clarify exactly what the expansion is, what the footprint increase is, how much acreage remains buffer acreage, and that for local folks, I think some of the other concerns we saw was what will be the impact on our home values, things like that. From a standpoint of already living beside a manufacturing facility, there should be no real impact on property values, and similar types of concerns, whether it be noise, lights. I think you'll see the actual impact versus what's there and has been there for many decades is not significant.
Yeah. Shoot, what was the other? Oh, do you know? I imagine that this will create jobs. Will it? Do you have a number on that?
It will. Yeah, it will. The site currently has approximately 90 employees, and this would more than double the amount of employees there in Jonesborough. So it's a real good opportunity for the community just from a job standpoint. I don't know if you're tracking some of the light manufacturing closures in that specific area in and around Telford, but the timing of this is really good for folks who are going to be looking for opportunities to work in the area. They're manufacturing jobs, so they're well-paid jobs, and a good match just to keep things stable in that particular area.
Awesome. I think that addresses all my questions. Only other thing is I'm just recording the audio right now, so I don't know if you can send me this slide deck or something like that.
Yeah, I can send you. Would you like me to send you? Ron, there's no issue with sending the slide deck, correct?
Correct. Right.
Yeah. No, I can send you that, and I'll send you the headshot of Ron as well, so you have that.
Perfect. Well, I appreciate y'all.
All right. Well, thanks, Caleb.
Yeah, thanks for taking time out for us, Caleb.